Welcome to the Strap and Link podcast, where we cover brands from their inception to their latest release.
It's the Montress Tudor.
Like I said, better movement, spring drive
So,
potentially, Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
A lot of their Super Ocean heritage. Now you see this kind of renaissance of Tudor. Finally, in 2016, they achieved the spring drive with an 8-day power. The podcast for watch lovers by watch lovers. New episodes every first and third Monday of the month.
Right. Well, the NFL draft did just end. We need to start doing like voice exercises before we get on here.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse.
I know the last two episodes, like neither one of us can talk.
Yeah.
I can't say NFL draft anymore.
Well, they won't notice. It's just for you to edit it all out. More work for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I might just throw everything up there. So you had a bachelor party this weekend.
Yeah, good
How's
time.
that?
It was a good old time. We went to Asheville, North Carolina, and brewery hopped for 3 full days, which means I get to bring 3 different watches up there. So it was a good
Ooh.
time. Yeah,
What'd you
so
bring?
brought the Rolex, the Tudor, and the Grand Seiko. So just
Nice.
the main 3. Grand Seiko, or I'm sorry, the Tudor was the travel watch, and then figuratively, I figured that I would end up wearing the sub out most of the time just because the Grand Seiko is a little more dressy, and that's what happened. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
compliments when you get a lot of new guys up there that don't really talk too much. It's
Yeah.
always fun to talk watches with everybody, and just some people are just novices at it and love the new information and talking. I was talking to a guy that is talking about his next watch, man. He just wants an Omega. He has a Bulova and a few Citizens right now, and he's just, man, I'm just saving up for an Omega, either the S&P 300 or an Aquaterra. So it was fun just talking back and forth with him and giving him some new information. I just realized I was
Yeah.
blocking the whole camera with my phone. Giving him some new information on it and fun stuff like that. But it was a good weekend.
Hell yeah. I had a what do you call it? Baby shower this weekend. So
A little more
different.
grown up stuff.
Yeah. A couple years down from the bachelor party time frame.
Yeah.
Similar, I guess, in the respect that met some people that I had not met before. Had run into some people that I've met before, but only maybe like once or twice, and I had a new watch on. We'll talk about that in a second. Got some compliments, and that opened up the can of worms. I have like, are you like the podcast watch guy now? Like in your kind of friend circle or like extended friend group and family group, are you the watch guy now?
Yeah, it's funny. Same thing happened here this weekend. Is not everybody knows, exactly what we do now. But they'll talk to another friend. Now, like our friend Honor, he had his Omega on, and our friend talked to him about it. Man, I love that watch, and our friend can only hold up so much in a watch conversation. So
Yeah,
after it started again, he's like, okay, let me bring David over here. He's like, talk to him about watches. And so it's funny seeing that. Guys will start, when they get talking over their head, they'll be like, I know somebody that can answer these questions for you, and then they'll bring it in. So that's starting to happen
yeah,
more and more, definitely. But
okay.
yeah.
I'm getting like the, if someone mentions a watch, even like an Apple Watch, if a watch comes up in conversation at all, they're like bring Brett in or ask Brett,
Mm-hmm.
or Brett probably knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it's like it's not a bad thing, It's like it's really fun,
It's
but
funny. Yeah.
it's also like, yeah, I think it's also just tough. Like if someone's not like a watch collector,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I don't know how to speak to them about watches without being too far over their head, or like
Yeah.
trying to dumb it down. I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm being like an ass by
Yeah.
dumbing things down, but if I'm like my mom, for example, today, she saw a Grand Seiko on my wrist and she, she was like, oh yeah, you can tell by the second sweeping hand that's a Rolex. And I was like, no, I was
That's
like,
funny.
that just means it's an automatic or mechanical watch, and
Mm-hmm.
there was one question and my wife's like, oh, Brett can tell you all about it. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go to the next place.
Yeah.
let's just cut this out before we get too into the weeds. So
Yeah.
I found myself like doing that. I'm like, do I go full in or do I just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, Yeah, I'm a watch guy, but I don't, I know just as much as you do, and just let the conversation go that way.
Yeah. Yeah, normally, like, this weekend, I'll catch myself, he'll say, "Oh, I want an Omega," and then, I'm like, "Okay, well, what kind?" "Oh, I don't really know." And then so I'll give him a couple options and, talk about a few things here and there. And then I always find myself just going to pictures. And then it always ends up rounding back to, a watch I own or something. I was wearing my sub at the time. I was like, "Yeah, you can see the ticking second hand here." I was like, "You can see a little stutter here, which is cool. It's a nice watch." I said, "But let me tell you about this Grand Seiko one." And then I'll show them videos of them side by side. Holy crap, man, that's crazy. And, it
Yeah,
always ends up coming back to something I know and, pictures and the cool dials and different things. But
yeah,
everybody knows Rolex. There's only so much you can say about it. I feel like, I can sit there and I feel almost braggadocious when you're like, "Yeah, let me tell you all about my Rolex." I'm like,
yeah,
"Let me tell you about something that you don't really know much about." And which he didn't, he didn't realize what Grand Seiko was. So it was
yeah.
something a little bit different than just sitting there. I felt like bragging the whole time about my Rolex.
I guess we
It's
can
time
get
to finally,
into,
yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about this mysterious Grand Seiko that's new. Um, so long story longer, I got last. Well, we're recording this on Sunday, just 3 days ago. On Thursday, I picked up a Grand Seiko Snowflake, which is the SB. I'm getting really good at these. The SBGA211. Boom. Grand Seiko Snowflake, spring drive, 9R caliber spring drive, I believe 9R. And this was the first Grand Seiko that had the combination of a spring drive movement and a texture dial
Mhm.
that I personally saw and held and wore in person, and was like that was the beginning point for my love, affection, and just love affair with Grand Seiko.
Yeah.
That was like 2 years ago, and so time was kind of creeping up. There were some things made timing made sense, and I'm like, all right, let's go take a look. So I went over the last couple of weeks 2 or 3 times to our favorite AD. Tried on the Snowflake. They had it on and off. 2 of the 3 times they had it. One of the times they didn't. And so I tried it, and I also tried another watch on, and well, some other Grand Seikos, of course. And so I finally pulled the trigger on the Snowflake, and I was just very underwhelmed over the short couple of days that I had it. Um, the bracelet was pretty uncomfortable. It was titanium, and I'm sure there's some people out
Mhm.
there that have this watch or have a titanium bracelet from Grand Seiko or any company that's titanium. When you've not had it before, and I'm sure there are people out there that would say, "Hey, it takes more than like a day and a half or two
Yeah.
times of wearing it." But I never got quite comfortable with it. It didn't fit very well. Grand Seiko bracelets, they don't taper anyway, so
Mhm.
they're not as slender and as kind of form fitting. Especially like I have a Manta bracelet. They make amazing bracelets. I have a Rolex Jubilee bracelet. Small links mean that it just wraps around your wrist in a much better way. So
If
compared
you're
to
between
what
sizes, it's harder for that titanium bracelet, which,
exactly.
of course, a lot of us are.
Yeah, and yeah, because I'm the same way. Like people make fun of me because I wear my watch a lot of the time up closer to my hand, like below my wrist bone. But it's because if it's above it, then it's so tight to the point that it leaves a mark in my skin when I unclasp it or take it
Mhm.
off. Um, so I'm definitely in between sizes, and yeah, it wasn't comfortable. But more than that, I think having it in person over a couple of days and really looking at it in detail, I found 2 things that really surprised and really shocked me. The first of the first of those being the dial. I found myself like somehow I was just like in the show, like on the showroom floor at the dealer. It looks amazing, and there was something about having it in person where like I mean I took some pictures, and it was even hard to get kind of the picture to kind of pick the texture up. And I know
Mhm.
you have a Skyflake.
I've noticed that, yeah.
Are you similar? Like, are you the same with that?
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off here and,
No, no, no.
go
I've
down
been
a
talking
rabbit
for
hole.
a long time, so
No,
jump in.
yeah, yeah. So When I bought my Skyflake, I think you remember this. I already had a blue watch and I already had a black watch, and I was like, man, I have a blue, black, and I should buy a white maybe or another blue. I was torn. So I was always about the Skyflake, and then finally I had talked myself into I need to get a white dial. So I was like, I was texting you. I was like, I'm going and I'm going to try on the Snowflake and the Skyflake side by side for the last time. And I'm going to make my decision today. And I remember the same thing. I was never like, I wouldn't buy this watch. But I remember trying them on side by side. It was a no brainer. The light blue of the Skyflake one, you could see the texture more. I don't know if
Okay.
it is the white. Um, it could just be the white kind of blends it in more, because I agree with you. When I even look at, I have videos and pictures, a bunch of them, of where my Snowflake, I don't really see much texture on it as well. You have to like really zoom in, or you have to go online and find like
Hmm.
a great
Someone with like
whatever.
a
Yeah.
real camera.
Yeah, exactly, to see the texture. So I definitely agree with that with you. And then I remember you sending me the same thing. It almost just looks like a plain white dial, which isn't a bad look.
Mm-mm.
It's just very, very subtle. And I think when we first, you can correct me if you're wrong here for you, but I think when we first started looking at Grand Seiko, even that subtle dial texture was still crazy to us. And
Yeah.
then now that we've seen so many in person and, tried on so many different dials with Grand Seiko and other watches in particular, the white just kind of is, it's the first love, but it's a little underwhelming when you look back on it. Kind of like, a girl, your old high school sweetheart, it was great at the time, but then you look back and you're like, okay, yeah, that was kind of underwhelming.
Right.
And you moved on to bigger and better thing. And I think that's kind of what you fell into. But I remember trying it on at the AD and thinking the same thing. And I remember texting you. I was like, I know it's impractical, and I'm just gonna have two blues, but I'm buying the Skyflake. It pops so much better. So
Yeah.
I get that.
So so by saying that, so you're saying that the blue Skyflake dial, that
Hmm.
one kind of stood out more than the Snowflake did to you, like on
Yeah.
like at the dealer, like when you're
Even
kind
the
of
texture, it seems like the
okay,
texture stands out much more than on the white dial to
okay,
me.
okay. Yeah, I wish that we could have. I wish that we could have hung out over the weekend for just to just kind of like look at those two
Compare.
because
Yeah.
obviously um, I mean, the whole point of us telling that story, right? Like being inside
Hmm.
the showroom floor where it's designed to probably reflect and refract as much light as possible.
Hmm.
Looks a little bit different than when you're in Atlanta and it's 50 and gloomy and cloudy and rainy,
Yeah.
for example. So
It's like a diamond ring.
yeah, I mean, that was certainly a big part of it, and we've both said it at this point, but yeah, that's just it was such a big part of like what made me really fall in love and really look at Grand Seiko in the first place, like maybe if they didn't have this kind of design language and this history of creating these really awesome textured dials, maybe when you hear of the Grand Seiko for the first time, or in I think both of our case, a salesperson is trying to sell you to at least look at Grand Seiko as a brand instead of, I think both of us walked in that store. We're like, Rolex is on the left, Tudor is the second case on the right. But hey, let me
Hmm.
show you about this first brand up here called Grand Seiko. Maybe if
Yeah.
it hadn't been for those kind of dials, we wouldn't have looked into it as quickly or as like viciously as we did maybe.
Hmm.
So that was definitely a part of it. Feeling a little bit underwhelmed, like you said, from a distance, looks more just kind of like a plain white dial,
Hmm.
which I'll agree in part with what you said. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think like if I wanted a white dial, I probably would have gone with something like functional. Like a
Yeah.
white
Explorer
dial
2.
GMT. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, perfect
The
example right there.
Polar.
Explorer
Yeah.
2. But when you go after a particular kind of style of a watch like the Snowflake, and then you find that white textured what it's named after, the white textured snow inspired design or snow inspired dial isn't really doing that unless you're really really close and you're really focused on it. um, so that was the first thing. I talked about the bracelet. I won't harp on that too much, but again, just it doesn't taper, so it's it just I didn't get a good
Yeah.
fit. I'm sure that I could have removed like a full length and put in a couple of half links, or just taken a half link out, and that probably would have been just fine because the where this episode's going. That's kind of where I'm at right now with bracelet of the Grand Seiko
Mhm.
that I'm
But,
wearing.
I don't like titanium in the first place, so
I never liked it in the store just picking it up. I don't know if it would have grown on me. I really don't.
Mhm.
I can tell you on the drive home, I usually do this if I pick up a new watch. I usually double wrist out of the store. I don't
Yeah.
want anything like in a bag, if someone, sees a, jewelry, watch, whatever bag. So I wore my Rolex that day and the date just, steel bracelet and everything. It's quite a substantial watch actually.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe the Jubilee bracelet. I'm not sure what quite makes it, but it is a little bit of a heavier watch. So I put that on my right wrist, which normally never wear a watch over there. The snowflake on the left with the titanium dial, and I think I texted
Mhm.
you a minute down the road, and I was like, "Damn, this Rolex is heavy as hell." And I
Yeah.
was like, I just noticed it. I kept moving my wrist, like adjusting it. I was like, God
Mhm.
dang, this Rolex is terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know if people get used to that if they end up preferring it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Grant my Skyflake really, being on that leather strap is probably the same weight as the Snowflake. Is probably maybe a little bit heavier, but it's around the same thing, and I don't really
Yeah.
notice that being light. But also, you see a leather strap, you expect it to be a little bit lighter than if you see a metal bracelet.
Well,
You kind
yeah,
of,
yeah,
I
steel
think
for
that's what
sure.
throws people off. But
Hmm.
anyway, so what ended up happening to the Snowflake?
Yeah. So I just wasn't in love with it, and I tried my hand at exchanging it. Luckily, I have a good relationship with the AD. So I exchanged it for the other Grand Seiko that I alluded to 10 minutes or so ago that I kept kind of coming back to on those three visits to go see the snowflake, which is let me see if I get this right, the SBGJ239. Hold on. Did I get this right? I'm just going to Google GS SBGJ239. Is that it? Bamboo? No, that's not the bamboo.
I was gonna say I typed it in and it did not pop up for that.
Okay, well,
We
by
can
now
roll
I've
with it. All right.
yeah, by now I've ruined the surprise. I got here it is. The SBGJ259. I was off. The SBGJ259.
Better than I could have done.
This is the Grand Seiko High Beat GMC 44GS case design. Bamboo path, bamboo garden, green bamboo, whatever. It's the bamboo watch.
Yeah.
Um, it has a very loud green dial, as you can imagine from the name. Nature inspired, like the Skyflake and the Snowflake that we've been talking about. Yes, very loud green dial. It's a GMT. We all know I love GMT. This is a true traveler's low or isolating the local hour hand, which makes setting the time and traveling with it and using the actual GMT function. It makes that a blast, super quick,
Mhm.
super easy. It's on a steel bracelet. And I'm sorry. All right, this hasn't ruined the episode, but I just remembered we kind of got enamored in the dial. The second thing about the snowflake that really irked me when I got home and I started really looking, really appreciating all the little details as you do when you bring a new watch home and you're able to just look at it without the pressure of a salesperson or whatever, like looming
Yeah.
over you. And you can do and think and say and feel and touch whatever the hell you want to. And I just got to the point where I was like, this watch oddly feels cheap to me. And I don't know if that's because I have a Grand Seiko that's a little bit on the kind of the dressier side. Um, God, the SBGJ. No, I don't know. I've already SBGM 221. That's what I've got. 3-day GMT, kind of cream ivory dial, leather strap. So I don't know if it's because I have a newer Grand Seiko and I've sort of just gotten accustomed to like the newer case designs and maybe the way that they've applied polishing techniques with the Zaratsu is a little bit different. But whatever it
Mhm.
was, when I kind of felt and played with that watch, you could shake the bracelet and you could kind of hear like the titanium links kind of
Yeah.
rattle, and as like a car guy and a watch guy, I was like, "Ugh, we don't like rattle, we
Yeah.
like solid thumps, you know.
Mhm.
I didn't like that. Yeah, and yeah, I think just maybe the case design, it was little nuances. And so and I won't spend a lot of time on that. I'll segue into the bamboo. it's like the complete opposite. The Bamboo is a newer watch that released initially. Like I've literally had this thing for 32 hours, I think. So I don't know every single little detail about it, but I think originally released in 2021, 21 or 22, and it's US
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very,
yeah.
very new.
So US boutique only, not sold in any other country. They're not like a limited edition. Like there's not only like 200 or 5 or 1,200 made, but it is a special edition, I guess, US only.
Yeah.
Like I said, stainless steel bracelet, and then the case design. Um, I'll see if I can get this to focus. Usually we can't, but if I can get this into focus, which yeah, we're not going to be able to. We'll put some more pictures
It
up
does.
on Instagram.
Yeah, it does look very similar to the other one, to the snowflake. But this
So
one is stainless steel, you said?
yeah, so the bracelet on this one is steel.
Okay.
The bracelets are nearly identical, really.
Yeah.
They're I mean, actually they probably are identical. It's a it's I believe is that one, two, three, four, five. Is that a 5 link? I don't know if these are individual links. There is a center polishing on the outer
Yeah.
edge of the center link. It might be a 3 link. I don't know if those are individual or if those are separate. But the same
I'm
polishing and brush technique is on this bracelet. The only difference is this one's stainless steel. And the clasp on this one feels updated too. That was
Yeah,
a
I'm
problem on the
reading here. It
snowflake I
says,
had.
yeah, 19 millimeter thick, so that's very similar. Okay.
hmm The clasp on the snowflake, it didn't fail, but it didn't snap in very easily and very often. The
Hmm.
first time that I put it on, and I was playing around with it, and I went to take it back off like 2 minutes later, I noticed when I just kind of brushed my finger against the clasp, it just fell. And I noticed that if you just kind of push the clasp, like you had to put force behind it to really get that to really get that snap in.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you could just thumb down on the clasp right here, which these are like a this is a two
Yeah.
button release. You could just thumb right there, and the whole thing would fall off. So there were just little things like that that made it feel a little bit cheaper and like a little bit older. The
Hmm.
Snowflake is an older watch. I think they've originally came out with that design in like 2004 or 2005. Um, yeah. So the last thing I'll say about the new one, because I've been rambling and talking about this new watch, the case design is by far the most um, distinguished part when we're comparing these two.
Yeah.
Um, the new 44GS cases are incredible. There's a ton of high polish on this. There are very wide angles. If you're looking pictures up, I think you are,
Hmm.
but the angles of the lugs are crazy. They they kind of drop off and they make the lug kind of comes out like a normal lug what normal lug does or would,
Yeah.
and then it has these very sharp sort of two or three angles that kind of cap off like the
Yeah.
the
I
end of the
see that.
lug.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you're wearing it and you kind of just can look at it, like I said, without someone staring back at you, you can really start to look at just all the little kind of edges and
Hmm.
shapes of it. Um, and no exaggeration when I say this, I was like, man, this is like a lot of polish. There's a lot of surface area. There's enough
Yeah.
surface area on this case and high polish, as long as there's no fingerprints or anything smudged on that polish. I literally checked my teeth earlier. I
Hmm.
checked in between my teeth because there's like, yeah, it's a
Glistening.
crazy design. Yeah, crazy
Yeah.
design. So,
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, about the bamboo? Have you seen it in person?
No, if I have, I haven't worn it. I've seen a bunch of pictures of it. I know we've talked about it um, to ad nauseum in the past. I'm surprised. I'd always, looking at it from me, I was at this bachelor party this weekend when Brett's, quarter life crisis was happening, figuring out if he wanted to keep the snowflake or not. Um, and I was like, well, I've always never been a fan of the weight of it, so I couldn't complain about. I could agree with that. I was surprised that you went away from it. And the fact that you did what you went to, I love that watch, and I'm glad you do too. It's just you're a green watch guy now. It's it's not, I don't want to say it's out there crazy, but it is a different watch, than an everydayer. But you have enough of
Yeah.
those, so I guess it is about time, to get something different. Um, you're back to the high beat. So the other one is an automatic, and the high beat is this is the only high beat you have, correct?
Oh, sorry. My other Grand Seiko, yes,
Yes. Yeah.
is that is a
Just a
9.
full on
It's a
automatic.
9S caliber Grand Seiko, yeah, mechanical. So
Yeah.
that's automatic winding, but yeah, this is a high beat. This Snowflake spring drive.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about that. I love enamored with spring drive technology.
So what made you, I know you, which is the reason you got the other one, is the dial, and you're a GMT guy. Was it just, again, you cared about the dial? There's a bunch of other or not snowflake, spring drive watches that you could have bought if you
Yeah,
wanted to just say you have a spring drive. So was it really just truly the dial that overcame, your want for a spring drive, and you're fine with, you have 2 Grand
I
Seikos
think.
now. I don't know how many more you're gonna get, without trading one away or whatever. Are you fine now with, saying, I don't need a spring drive? I know one of the salespeople, once again, trying to sell something. I was
Yeah.
like, man, I really love. It was the GMT that I like. I can't. I'm sure you would remember it, but I can't remember
Oh
the crazy looking one.
God, what's the name of that? Yeah,
But I was like,
it'll
but
come
it's
to
a
me in a
high
minute.
beat. Yeah, it was a high beat. So I was like, I'm not buying that for my first one. And she was like, well, the high beat's actually more powerful than the spring drive. I was like, well, cool, but yeah. So, what
Yeah.
is what's your thought on that? Are you happy, with the high beat? I mean, I know it's
So
still nicer than a regular automatic, but
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a step up in terms of mechanical and
mhm.
sort of I guess just from a technological standpoint, it is certainly advanced. So high beat, 36,000 vibration on mute.
Yeah, you just muted yourself real quick. 36,000
Sorry.
beats per minute. Is that what you said?
Yeah, sorry, my finger tapped the keyboard there. Yeah, so high beat 36,000 vibrations per hour
Okay,
compared to
not minute. Yeah.
usually 28.8 is what that
Okay.
number is for, like, for example, the other Grand Seiko that I've got with the
Mhm.
9R, or sorry, the 9S. Um,
I see this is
so
55-hour preserves. What was the
mhm.
snowflake? Do you know off the top of your head?
Top of my head, I think that was 50.
Okay.
I think 50. Um,
The
Wait, no,
bamboos with
no,
a
no, no, no.
nine S
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
86 caliber.
It's 72 hour on
Okay.
the Snowflake. That's a 3 day, 3 day, yeah, spring drive power reserve. So I mean, there are some trade backs for sure
Mhm.
to this watch. That being one of them. Um, the other being that, like you said, your question, no, it's not a spring drive. I did really want that combination of the texture dial with the spring drive, and it was awesome to look at, and I really loved it. And I will eventually have a spring drive, probably like the Omiwatari, which
Mhm.
is your watch minus the spring drive indicator,
Yep.
and basically just a clean face. Like there's
Yeah,
just nothing on
sleeker.
that dial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much more expensive too, but
Yeah, it's like another 35 4 grand. I mean, yeah, it's like
yeah.
40% more expensive.
Mhm.
So I think one day I will have a spring drive. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, one day I will have a spring drive. Um, I wasn't I wasn't really too upset about that. I just I don't know. I think it was just the fact that I had made the decision to buy a new watch, which from a
Yeah.
financial standpoint, when you get to that point in your life, you said this a couple of weeks ago. I think on the TISO episode where you talked about like when you spend weeks or months, however long, or days or hours researching a watch, and then you pull the trigger, you want that watch to be everything that you thought that it would be,
Mhm.
because whether it's the time that you invested researching it, whether it's the fact that you chose it over a different watch, whether it's the fact that you made a financial commitment, or financial decision rather, and you've committed that money, you want to feel like what you just committed and all those avenues I just mentioned is paying off
Right.
by way of the
Worth it.
watch. Exactly.
Did you have buyers, I don't want to say buyer's remorse, but when you hopped in that car leaving with the snowflake, when did you start having, that inkling of a second thought? Like,
It was like a couple hours. I
was it?
mean, it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it wasn't that soon. It wasn't like in the car. Um, Quite the contrary. I was like, damn, I did it. I was like, I've got one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't very. I mean, yeah, it was like it was like 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. I came back. I had some work stuff to do that night. I worked for about an hour on a project for work, and I wrapped up at like 7 or 7:30. I think we ordered dinner to the house or something, and it was like kind of around that. It was like once I'd kind of stopped, like I had gone
Yeah.
and spent an hour or so at the store, and I'd driven back, um, finished up some work, and it was once I had like that kind of stopping point, and
Yeah.
there was just something about probably a lot to do with the bracelet and having it like on the wrist for a few hours at that point, and I probably was just like, all right, maybe I'm not quite getting as used to this as I am with a different watch, you
Yeah.
know? It's like I throw the Jubilee on, it's so buttery. Throw the Manta
Mhm.
on, it's great bracelets. So I don't know, maybe that's what it was. But yeah, it was just a couple hours.
Yeah.
And immediately, and I knew immediately, as soon as that thought entered my mind, I was like, all right, I'm gonna sleep on this for at least one night, but probably two or three. But if I do go back, it's gonna be the bamboo. Like I knew immediately
Yeah.
that it was this one, that it was this watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
Glad
know.
they accepted the exchange.
I know. I was a little shocked, honestly, because, most stores are if it's been sized, and
Yeah.
what I should have done, I don't know, should I be saying this? I don't know. What I should have done
Edit it
were
out if you
put,
need to.
yeah, were to put all the links back into the bracelet and then just be like, no, it wasn't sized.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
oh yeah, we all it all crossed our brain.
yeah. Well, I mean, so here's the deal. It was 2 days old. It was sized by them in the store. I actually don't have a push pin right now or a like a punch thing. So
Yeah,
and these are not screwed in links, which is this the new bracelet are another another big like it's stupid, but it's a big benefit to me at least. I can size my own bracelet without feeling like I'm gonna break something.
yeah,
The worst thing, maybe losing those little screws, but luckily I've got three extra as of right now. Um, so yeah, in hindsight, maybe I should have done that. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised. But I told them I was like, look, this was 2 days ago. I was like, I've barely worn it, maybe like 2 3 hours. The
mhm,
watch I want to get is actually a little bit more expensive, so I'm not like taking money away from your from your
yeah.
from your
You're
months,
still making a little
numbers
bit
here.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially because this was April the 29th. I'm like, yeah, I'm not trying to take sales commission away from anybody. Um, so yeah, but she was like, okay, but the next one you get, no return, no exchange. I was like, don't worry
deal.
about it. Don't worry about it.
I mean, it obviously helps, I think, that the amount of money we've spent, which is not anywhere near what some crazy people have spent, but,
Oh,
you
I
haven't
think I
spent
met one of
nothing.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't spent, nothing there. So they, I think that had to play into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had a conversation when I bought the snowflake about kind of about that. So maybe we'll talk about that on a future episode. Just kind of AD relationships and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, yeah, I guess to kind of wrap it up or recap maybe from my side, um, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things, I guess, where we talked about this in a couple of the like earliest episodes that buying a watch, I mean, these are timepieces, they're jewelry, and like
Hmm.
there's at least I would say at least there's like 20% emotional attachment to these things.
Hmm.
It's not logical to go and spend this much money on something that your phone does for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So inherently, right, there's a big chunk of this that's just like, um, for some people it's going to be emotion, for some people it's going to be status, for a lot of people it's going to be a little bit of both or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Appreciation for the ingenuity and the mechanisms inside of it. And for me, when I got home with that snowflake, the emotional attachment was just completely gone.
Yeah.
And I tried to just look at it as like, this is the one of the greatest feats in all of horological history with the spring drive, beautiful original design. And just couldn't talk myself into it. So
Yeah.
um, it's the first time it's ever happened to me in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I guess it's real. And like I kind of got to the point I was like, man, I really don't want to lose a few $100 trying to flip this thing or sell it back because it's not technically new anymore. But I was
Yeah.
like, I try to convince myself that it was the watch that I wanted. It wasn't. The bamboo is certainly an out there watch. It's a cool GMT. The GMT hand is like lime green.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's an out there watch, but I think at the same time,
It's
it,
but it's not super dressy, which is nice for you. You know, you can wear that really anywhere. Um, yeah, it's not. Yeah, you can wear that to the store and be out there. You can wear that to a nice dinner and it still
mhm.
dress up enough. So good variable use there, which is great for you, obviously.
It is very sporty. I mean, there's elements of it that are very sporty, like the
Yeah,
case is chunky and beefy, and I
yeah,
never thought that I would like or even seek out a case like that. But there's something about this one being a little bit chunkier. I believe I don't have it right in front of me. 14.3 millimeter, 14.7 millimeter um,
yeah,
case thickness. So chunky boy, but it's also like quite
yeah.
dressy. Like the
Yeah, I'm looking here. Sorry to cut you off.
okay,
Diameter is 40 millimeters. Lug to lug's 46.2. Thickness is 14 millimeters. Bandwidth
okay.
is 19 millimeters.
So it's just a
Um,
flat
yeah,
14.
it's in
Okay.
caliber a 9S86.
Mhm.
Likes that 55 hours power reserve and 10 bar
Yeah.
and 4800 magnet.
Yeah, so that's nice that we get some water resistance. My other Grand Seiko doesn't have that. The
Yeah,
like I said, the case very sporty, the dial quite dressy, I think, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
So it's yeah, man, it's a cool watch. Like I could see I could see like a tan strap, some kind of a tan or like a, you know, middle shade of brown leather going on this and
yeah,
being really dressy. And then I mean, the newer version or the newer generation of this bracelet on steel, it's not the most comfortable bracelet in the world, but it's not uncomfortable.
yeah.
So you know, you
You're
could
just
keep it.
spoiled with that good Jubilee. You love that Jubilee bracelet. Whew.
Yeah, the Jubilee and the Manta are both dope. Jubilee is my favorite. I mean, it's just hard to beat that. I mean, when the links are that small, like
Yeah,
it's
it
naturally going to
wraps
form.
perfectly.
Yeah, it's like a mold of your wrist.
Yeah,
So which that's why people love half links, you know, and they
yeah.
complain when companies like who was it? I don't know, Tudor, like the Heritage Blackberry 58, not have half links or something like that. I don't know
Hmm.
something. But yeah, I mean when you don't, yeah, have those little adjust or like micro adjustments, that's something else
Yeah.
that Grand Seiko doesn't do. Neither of these had micro adjustments. Have
I
on
don't
the
understand people that don't do that anymore. That's such
yeah.
a useful micro. Ugh, yeah.
I mean I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's no pins. Yeah, so there's none there. Yeah, but otherwise, awesome watch. We'll throw some pictures up on Instagram the day that we push this out. We're really not sure. We're toying with some new episode ideas, this being one of them, of course. The other one being kind of our background, how we got into podcasting. We don't know which one's going to come out first either. Um, anything else you want to talk about? Watch related or not?
No, honestly, no. I think that's it. I mean, the biggest thing was, I think nobody saw this coming. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see, what some of our acquaintances think about it,
Yeah.
and hear some feedback on it. But
Yeah.
I think I'm do the dial that stands out and that you like more. And obviously, you've talked about that one for a while, and I have thought the same thing in a recent post of that snowflake.
Hmm.
It's sometimes just you have to look. I'm wearing my Rolex now, but you have to look for most of the dimensions on that. Even my Skyflake, the most, you can see dimensions everywhere on the watch
Mm-hmm.
fairly easily. But if you want to see the best texture, you need to look below the center lower part of the watch dial is where the
Yeah.
majority of it is, in my opinion, like the deepest incisions into the dial. And for the or for the snowflake, that's really the only place from afar I can ever see an indention in the dial. So I definitely get what you're saying, because I've noticed that. I've just really never said anything about it because I knew I was never getting it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I definitely get what you're saying there. And from 10 feet away, you would just think it was a white dialed watch. So
Yeah.
still a
It's
good watch, though. I'm sure a lot of people are going to come at us for it and
yeah.
defend it. And to each their own. Once again, it's jewelry, so
Yeah.
just don't hate us. You might be the titanium lover, but still
Yeah.
a good watch. We're not gonna. I don't think we're knocking it too badly. Just personal taste,
No.
and
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, like, look, it's still Grand Seiko's like flagship watch, pretty much. I mean, is that coming to an end because they're making all
So
sorts of
many
new
better ones.
amazing
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're maybe that was like a realization for me once I had the Snowflake was that, man, like this watch came out in like 2005 or 2004. Like, unfortunately, sadly for the consumers, Grand Seiko hasn't done a lot to upgrade and like update that. I mean, like the date just, for example, just, I've been talking about the Jubilee. That's what I have on, or that's what that is on, is a date just. Think about the date just from the 80s and the 90s. Like the sizing
Hmm.
has changed. I mean, obviously, like take the fluted bezel, for example. That used to be much smaller. Now it's more pronounced. So little tweaks. I don't quite understand why Grand Seiko wouldn't have done a few things like that. Like I talked about the case design and liking the bamboo one so much more. I don't think case design is necessary, redesign rather, but micro adjustments. Like,
Yeah.
man, if this watch has been out for 17, 18 years now, like throw some micro adjustments our way,
Yeah.
on on the newer models or um I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. It was some of that come into play because like I said, it's their flagship model, but they're doing so much cool stuff right now. On the dress side, on the sports side.
Yeah.
Um
Especially in their, which I think I've alluded to this once in the past, but I feel like they do so much limited edition stuff that
yeah,
sometimes their normal daily, year round sellers falter because of that.
that's a good point.
They don't update a lot of their just, year round sales. They
Right.
focus so much
Because
money
they
on the
know
yeah.
yeah, because they know they might have 2 or 3 limited edition or special
They release a lot
editions.
of limited edition, special edition watches, but I think that sometimes can hurt. But, you know, I don't know. Even if it's changing size or making the for me to even think about buying something like that would have been making it in a stainless steel option as well.
That was
Something different like Rolex did. I mean, God, they've had the same sub for 40 years now with they got away from the gilded dials forever ago, but they still changed it to from a 40 millimeter to a 41. They did
mhm.
something, they changed the class. I still on my
Yeah.
sub, I have an older class, but the newer ones, they change subtle things there, and I think you should always be doing that at least every 10 years.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's another area of the Grand Seiko. This one's the same. I mean, this one feels nicer. The clasp on the Snowflake, the Grand Seiko insignia and the stamping. But actually, no, it's probably just because it's titanium. I was gonna say it felt kind of cheap, but probably just because
It's
it's
just
titanium.
lighter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just lighter and it's brushed, which I think brushed has more of like an industrious look to it than polished does.
Oh yeah,
So
sporty. Yeah.
it doesn't
Well,
seem as
like I
like
say, if I'm
fancy.
spending that much money, I want to feel my watch. I mean, I love the
Yeah,
Submariner, especially I loosened it, I micro adjusted it a little bit for the summer, so it moves a little bit more. I feel this watch when I wear it.
yeah,
It moves around. I can wear it down below my wrist. I can wear it up on my hand. It's what you're wearing. And
yeah.
I that's why I've just worn the crap out of this watch for the past month or two. I think I was telling you, the watch I've worn the least lately was surprisingly is the Grand Seiko. Because I'm either
Mm,
wearing the Tudor because I'm really going on a sporty look or something, or I'm wearing the
yeah,
Sub because I just love the way it feels right now.
yeah. See, I wear my other Grand Seiko a lot. My kind of more traditional dress watch looking
Yeah,
SBGM221. I got it this time. Earlier I said GJ. SBGM221. I wear that one all the time, and I think
yeah,
that I'll wear this one all the time too. I'm a sucker, huge sucker for GMT, and I find the practicality of them quite useful. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like sometimes I'm kind of in that with like my Black Bay 58 right now. I'm not wearing my Black Bay hardly at
yeah,
all, and I
yeah,
think actually maybe because of that rubber. I don't know.
yeah,
The rubber seems very, especially because mine's black, so it's all black. It seems very sporty. And
yeah,
sometimes I'm not really going for that. Like if I'm wearing a black T-shirt right now, that'd be perfect.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you go through those.
Yeah, I think I mean also for my day-to-day wearing, I'm dressed up. So when the weekend comes, I like the sportier look, which is when I break out the Tudor. And you're kind
Yeah,
of the opposite. You'll wear sporty during the week most of the time, and then you want to do a little something different at night when you go out.
I am. Yeah, I generally am. It's usually like a tutor around the house with a rubber strap or a Tiso or something, maybe the Manta. And
Yep.
then on like Friday night or dinner, date night or whatever, it's usually the Grand Seiko GMT because it's a dress watch, or the
Mhm.
Rolex with the fluted bezel Jubilee because it's just so shimmery, like those two
Yeah.
elements are just so shimmery. So those are
Yeah.
both a little bit more kind of like fancy, classy, dressy, looking.
Mhm.
And then I'll leave the sport, the Monta Noble and the Black Bay, and now this bamboo. Yeah, I'll leave those to kind of the midweek
Yeah.
working hours.
Yeah. But the watch I love and will be the only other Grand Seiko I will probably purchase. I just remember the insignia is the SBGJ249. That is a the show GMT.
That's yeah, Shosho.
Yeah, yeah. That is a beautiful watch. It has the same blue GMT hand like my
Mm-hmm.
um the second hour hand like my Skyflake has, that dark blue,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a beautiful watch, but that'll be a little bit down the road.
Yeah.
But all right, is that it?
Yeah, I think so. I'll say, don't think we're bashing Grand Seiko. It happens. I mean, we traded one in to get another one.
Yeah, you didn't move to another
Um,
watch brand.
yeah, yeah. Still love Grand Seiko. Maybe that's the problem. They do too much. They make too many damn great watches that it's too hard to decide and pick on one.
Yeah, one little call to action, or for you or anybody that's listening to this when it comes. I did have somebody ask me, "Hey, you have the Skyflake, so I don't want to get that. I'm not a huge fan of the Snowflake." He said the same thing. The dial doesn't do anything for him, but I want a spring drive. He said, "I want a spring drive, or I want the same watch you have, that GMT, the older one with the cream dial.
Oh,
What is it?"
oh, mine is the SB. Shit. Oh, SBGM 221.
221. Yeah. So either that one, or he said, "I find me a cool different dial in a spring drive that's not a Snowflake or a Skyflake." And he said
They
he doesn't like the show bun. He doesn't like that. I said, he was like, "That's the
the
other one that I don't like."
the Shunbun.
The Shin bun, yeah.
Is that the cherry blossom, right?
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
cherry
cherry
blossom.
blossom.
He
Yeah.
says, so not those three. Are there any more around that has a cool different dial? He's like, the
Mhm.
bark look of the Shunbun just really doesn't do it for me. You already have the Skyflake. I don't want your same watch, and the Snowflake, he says, doesn't
Yeah.
have enough texture. So I'm looking around. If you see anything pops up, send it to me.
You
Or if anybody that's listening knows, DM us, let us know.
Yeah, definitely do that. There are a lot of other spring drives, obviously, but off the top of my head, I'm kind of struggling to figure out, or I'm struggling to think of other ones because I mean the Omi Watari,
Hmm.
but it's a lot more expensive. It's not a Skyflake. But then you said
It's so
he's not
similar
really a
to
fan
it.
of the
Yeah.
Skyflake. Yeah.
Well, he's a fan of the Skyflake, but he's not a
Oh.
fan of the Snowflake.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
But he
So
doesn't
then,
want the
yeah,
same. He doesn't want the same looking watch as me.
got it. Okay. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a hard thing. Yeah, I was the same way. I was like, God, I should know something else.
Yeah.
Because as
Send
soon
us
as you
some.
said that, I said the Shoe Bun, Shun Bun, whatever, however you say
Uh,
it.
Well, I think technically it's like Shunbun, but
Yeah,
I'm not trying to mimic accents and
yeah,
pronunciations. I think the Shunbun, that's how probably Americans,
yeah,
white people say it, Shunbun.
yeah. The cherry blossom. I guess he doesn't want the pink. He doesn't want a pink watch. So that was my only thought, because I thought that was a beautiful watch.
That was the other watch that I was thinking of.
Contemplating, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to keep dragging this episode out, but yeah, and it was there too. They were
yeah,
both there. And I felt very much like on the spot because I was the only person in the store and they were like, "What do you want to do today?"
yeah,
Holding a bag with like the gift wrapper, like the
yeah.
like the gift tissue paper,
Uh
And I'm
huh.
like, I want to exchange it and send some money out there. And I was like, gotta make a decision right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I knew it was the bamboo.
All
Yeah,
right.
send us some suggestions. Yeah, spring drive dials, non flake, non Omi Watari, non. Shunbun slash Cherry Blossom. Let us know favorite textured Grand Seiko Spring Drive dial. With that, I think we are out. We will cut it off here. We're about 53 minutes in. Thanks so much for hanging out, listening. Hit us up on social at Strap and Link. Check us out first and third Monday of each month for our regularly scheduled programming, which are brand discussions where we talk about everything from a brand's history, their inception, their founding, all the way to what they're doing now, what they just released, what we love, what we don't. A little bit like this episode, but in much more detail. Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.